Ashworth, I'll put you on the spot. Why are you hearing Danny and Matt try to be consistent with you guys as a staff to say build off of a topic, whatever the topic is, but be consistent with it from when you start your 1 hour session to when you end with 4v4, 5v5?
Why am I hearing those two be consistent with the same message?
Yeah, well, and not necessarily what are they trying to get behind it, but what is the purpose of being organized to have that topic from start to finish, to have that be the focus?
To make the most of the 60 minutes or the 57, 58, whatever it is that we get there. If you've got your plan and you've got your timing set, then you can make sure that you're hitting the points that you want to and you can get through it. And then it doesn't become like Danny said, the time goes quickly. So if you don't have your plans and your progressions, your 15 minutes goes into 20, 25 minutes. And
Sure.
Before you know it, you hit 30 minutes and then you're just like, oh, scrap it. And you just play for the last 20 and then it kind of becomes a waste of an hour.
Yeah, yeah. I'll also piggyback on that idea. It's also think about the kids. They don't go to the math class, learn times tables today, learn division tomorrow, learn to add and subtract. It's very structured in terms of how I give you that information because that's how they learn best. It's not about how you want to coach, say, nah, I don't like that style. I want to just mix and match and go from defending to attacking to a little bit of this, to set pieces to that. And now they're just like, what'd you work on? They're like, I don't know. We're working on like 5 or 6 different things. And none of it stuck, right? You just threw a bunch of stuff against the wall and it's like, I hope he remembered it. Maybe he did. But if you're consistent from start to finish, that's how they, meaning the kids, that's how they're going to learn and process things the most and the best. And now you can build off of that. Now you have a reference point to say, hey, Ramses, what did we work on Monday? Didn't we work on 1v1s? Yeah, what did we work on about 1v1s? It's defending. What makes a good defender? Being on your toes? Yeah, being on your toes. What else? And now you have a reference point because you drove that home versus you touched on it for one coaching point. You jumped over to corner kicks for another one. You worked on goal kicks and playing out of the back a little bit. And there was a bunch of info.
And just to piggyback on that,
Yep.
a lot of you guys are going to be a progression, whereas your topic might be very similar on a Monday to what it's going to be on a Wednesday.
Yep.
If that is the case, when someone's clearing out on your Wednesday session, first 2 minutes, recap what you went through on Monday. Make sure it's fresh in their mind, because if you want to build on something, those kids are going to be focused and remember, what did we do on Monday? Because otherwise you spend the first 15, 20 minutes basically going over what you just did on Monday, and you don't get to where you want to be on Wednesday.
Yep, very good point. Danny had mentioned having a classroom session or two within here. You're not even on the field. Does that intimidate anybody, just out of curiosity? It's fine if it does. I know I was there. I know I'm not there anymore. Is anybody just like, I don't know what I would do in this setting with 11-year-old girls or 13-year-old boys? Like, I'm good down there, but you get me in here, I'm lost. If you are, here's a thought, and this is going to be a cheat sheet for you. What is it? 5 minutes.
Think about your team that you're on. If I were to ask you the first 2 questions that I asked
Doing this with your team.
which is this, top 3 things that could get in the way of you all maximizing your ability, what comes to mind? What would you write down? And then if I asked you personally, what's your biggest personal struggle that not many people know about, what comes to mind? We give every team that I work with a sheet of paper that looks like this, and then we fold it in half to divide them, and I just want to show you a football team that I just did this with, and this is in order of the most common responses. This is the game now. This is what people need help with, and if you can help them navigate their inner journey, that will build trust and relational equity. This is how they answered the first question, and we tally marked what was most common. Think about the team you're on. Can you relate to this?
Look at them. I'll give you maybe 5-ish seconds. The other thing I would also suggest, what is a personal struggle that not many people know about? Don't just leave that question to your team. Put that on you. I think now you start digging into a layer that much deeper with you and your team when you know a little bit about me, and I don't just have these walls up as a coach, like I don't know him. I would highly suggest you participate as well in this stuff because it makes you that much more human to your kids.
Be vulnerable,
Yeah.
This is your curriculum, and then we do meetings once a week to attack these things. All good with that? All right? So what we then do to try and illustrate why we're meeting, because it's so out of the norm for them, is we have them write on sticky notes their 3 challenges that will get in the way of the team. And then we have on a board 2 categories: human-related issues, sport-related issues. And we ask them to go put the sticky notes on which side that they relate to. And if you look at it, what? All of the challenges that get in the way of a team come down to what? Personal and interpersonal issues.
Interesting fun fact, right? And that was just one football team, and maybe that doesn't apply to everybody, but more times than not, I'll be surprised if you have many sporting issues to say, we don't have enough good players on our team. That's more of a sporting issue. But everything that they put on there had to do with me getting along with you, me getting in my own way because I'm too selfish, or somebody else being too selfish, right? Interesting. Did anybody catch how often he, for his program, discussed those topics?
Once a week.
Once a week. Not once a season. Not once a month. Once a week. Just something to think about, to say, how often can I or should I don't know. Something to think about as we wrap this one up.
And those are fully within our control. But a lot of people don't want to take time away from the busyness of what they have to accomplish to attack these things to create a healthy environment. Can we agree with that? So the question we started to ask ourselves is, what is the difference between character development and behavior management? Think about how you would answer that question. When we ask coaches, they say that character development is what? The long game. Behavior management is right now. Now, if I were going to ask you all, which is most important to you, if you think about your life purpose, developing the character of the people you lead or shaping their behavior? Show of hands if you would say character development. Okay, I want everyone to look around. Keep your hands up if you don't mind. Okay? That is not uncommon with the coaches that I work with. Here's the catch. If behavior management is right now, how you navigate the moments that catch you off guard is where trust is earned. And if they don't trust you, you have no shot at what? Shaping the trajectory of who they're becoming. And so what we believe is that we believe the environment is right now and culture is over time. And so we spend a lot of time focusing on what drives the right now, because we know that the long term will take care of itself. One of my favorite quotes from an NBA GM, when he was asked, what is your job? He said this: to build an environment where people can do their best work. If I were to ask you from a leadership perspective, what is the most important thing you do to build an environment where people do their best work? What would you say? When we ask coaches that, it comes back to 3 things: how you define, manage, and model your expectations as a leader. How you define, manage, and model the vision. Defining is proactive, managing is reactive, and modeling is all the time. My favorite tool for modeling is this. Anything you're asking of your team, you have to be the physical manifestation of that. So if you want your team to be in the moment, then you need to be in the moment. This is the tool that can provide a healthy, strong example to the people you lead. Anything that you're asking, are you signaling what that looks like in real life? And then the last one is self-awareness. A couple months ago, I started working with an athlete to prepare for the NFL draft. And I asked him what he wanted to get out of the sessions. Guess what he said? I want to get to know myself better. And when I show that to other athletes, they nod their heads. Why do you think that is? Because when you're chasing excellence, what happens? It's so easy to become over-identified with what you do. And so if self-awareness is building a platform where people can get to know themselves better, we believe that question-based leadership development is building a platform where people can coach themselves better.
So I think a very interesting activity that all of you, regardless of age, you could ask 10-year-olds that question. What are 3 things that get in the way of our team meeting our potential or maximizing our ability? You're going to get a much different answer when they're 8 and 9 versus when they're 17, 18, but it's still applicable, right? They're going to be much more simple-minded. Here's another activity that I remember doing I did it with, then it was our, God, what were they, under 16s. I got it from U.S. Soccer. They call it the iceberg effect. And I shared that with my wife, Bree, because she was coaching an under 10 girls. And you just draw an iceberg, right? You got water. You don't even have to show them this visual, but I would for an example. And you say, what are things that everybody sees on the surface that you feel defines you as a player? And you'll get descriptions. What are the things that people don't see, right? What are the things that I know nothing about? And some of these skills will get very personal. Some will just stay surface level, but it's a very interesting activity. It's almost a soccer homework, but now you're dipping into the psychology piece to say, how do I get to know you a little bit better and show you, and me showing my team, this is what people see on the surface. I'm a dad, I'm a soccer coach, I like to do certain things, I like to travel. What don't you see? What don't you know about me, right? And sharing that with them. I think another interesting activity and very easy activity, but it just facilitates a discussion very easily versus trying to stress out about how can I word something, right? You've given them an activity to think about, how does that relate to me, right? You've given them an activity to think about, how does that relate to my team, right? So just things to think about. If you need other ideas, more ideas for classroom sessions, the easy ones are the soccer pieces, but maybe navigate away from that and put that sports psych hat on for you and your team a little bit to delve into that, because there are those 4 pillars of a player, right? Technical, tactical, physical, and that mental. Make sure we spend a little bit of time there. Question, I'm going to go into kind of the purpose of this meeting finally. Do you coach to your best player or your weakest player? You have a team of, we'll say, 15 kids. Are you coaching to your best player or your weakest player? Not necessarily looking for responses, but think about how you design your session plans. Are you designing your session plan to say, I need to get this kid or these kids caught up because they're way behind? Or are you saying, if they come, but I need to coach to the best because not everybody's going to have the opportunity to move it into a different level, right? I think regardless of what that answer is, remember, teams don't learn, individuals do. Teams don't learn, individuals do. I think we get caught up a lot of times to say, well, we went over that last week. It sunk in for 2 kids and 13 of them are still scratching their head. Be like, what? I don't remember, right? Individuals learn, teams don't learn. I think a lot of coaches mask the idea of saying, well, we worked on that 3 times this season, we should know that, right? And you got those 4 or 5 ballers, they're just like, let's go, and they're getting frustrated because not everybody else is on the same page, right? I think that's just an important piece to remember as you work through things. What's the ideal number, Hallberg? You have a 99 group?
Yeah.
What's an ideal number you feel like is to have on a roster for 99?
12, 13?
12 is the perfect?
Yeah, 12.
Ramsey's 11 to 11. What's a perfect number?
11.
Yeah?
What age? Just this age?
Just whatever age, but that plays 11 aside. For 11 aside roster, you're just like, I like to have, my perfect number is 16, 18.
I'll say 18.
18? How many is an ideal number to have at training? Is it all 18 for you? Is it all 12 for you? Or is it less? What's that ideal sweet spot? Just out of curiosity.
5, 12, 12.
Okay.
I want all my players to be at practice.
Your ideal number is 18. You want 18 at training? How many of us get that ideal number often? Yeah, and that's very much a reality for not just Grand Junction, Colorado. That was a reality when I was in LA. It was, even for kids playing in the academy, you'd have 3 or 4 kids. So don't think that that would go away if you're going to move. You're going to have the same problem, different place. I can promise you that. But something to think about. Let me ask you this question. How many of you have scrapped your plans because you were planning for that those 18 players or those 12, and you got 8 or you got 11? Any of us just like, can't do what I wanted to do? Yeah? Be mindful of worrying more about the principles you want to bring out versus the activity you want to do. Because I think a lot of coaches will just scrap me like, well, shit, we'll just play 5 aside. I got 11 kids, we'll just play 5 aside, you didn't get anything. I would argue you're now coaching to your lowest denominator of a player. You've just let everybody off the hook. You've scrapped it because you didn't get those extra 7. And now everybody's behind, not just those 7. So something to think about before you're so quick moving forward to scrap it. Because if you don't get those 12, maybe you have 6. You're like, that's half my team. What am I supposed to do with 6 kids? Right? Well, number one, what can you do? Flip it. What can you do versus think about what I can't do? That's going to put you automatically in a little bit different perspective to say, I'll tweak this, I'll add this. This, I can do that in half. Or maybe it just challenges you a little bit as a coach to adapt. How many of you want players that adapt and are willing to be coachable, etc.? We all want that player. How about you show that? You reference to it. If I want my team to do this, then I need to do this. If I want kids that can adapt, I as a coach have to be able to adapt. Not just scrap it and be like, well, can't do that today, and now we're not going to hit that until next month. Now you're putting everybody behind. And you're losing an opportunity, a valuable opportunity, to hit up with those players on an individual level. Again, wearing a different hat. It's not just coaching all 18 players. You got 7 missed. Are you going to hold a small group session in a different day? Right? Or maybe you just missed 2 kids. How are those 2 kids going to get caught up? Right? You might make the argument, well, my best players are a part of those 6 missing. Great. How are you going to circle back versus use that as an excuse to have your team get held back? Things to be mindful of, because very, very few coaches train with the ideal set amount of players consecutively, right? So just be prepared to adapt and do what you ask of your kids. I think that's a very important aspect to remember as a coach as you guys continue to navigate your seasons, specifically at this club. But I was talking about principles versus activities. Can you give me a couple principles from a defending side?
Be pressure.
Okay, so pressure. Side on is going to be more of a technique, but pressure, yeah. Give me another one, Ramses. Cover. Give me another one, Danny. You can hit those principles whether you have 3 kids or 7 kids. Not going to hit them with 2, pressure, cover, balance, but you can still get it with that few. So don't forget about that. Now it's how adaptable can you be with the game or activities that you're going to do versus, oh, we can't work on those principles. Those principles don't go away just because you have less players. Your activity might go away, but those principles don't go away. Think about the attacking side of the game. Give me an attacking principle.
Penetrate.
How can I penetrate?
Dribbling.
Okay,
Passing.
you guys know what I mean.
Movement.
Okay, so you're giving me ways to penetrate. Give me another attacking principle.
Awareness.
Scanning, awareness. Give me another attacking principle.
I was gonna say, they say possession of that.
Possession is very broad.
Width. Depth.
Okay, width and depth. We'll go with those. There again, you can coach those pieces if you got 4 kids. You can coach width and depth, right? So don't forget about those pieces because those don't go away. Again, activities might have to fluctuate. You might have to adapt a little bit versus just like, can't do this. Flip it, what can I do now? And how can I use those to my advantage? How about ideal space? Matt, what's ideal space to work with? Because we talked about the numbers game. What's an ideal space you would love to have? Or maybe you do have.
Well, that I would love to have half a field.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you get that?
Yeah, I get that.
Okay,
But and for my 9v9 team, I get a full 9v9 field.
yeah,
But you can make do with almost any size.
sure.
I mean, maybe not a 5x5.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
I kid you not. In LA, we would have the amount of kids and club teams we had. It was not uncommon to have 8 teams on one full-size soccer field. And we would have a club curriculum. And one of the weeks was crossing and finishing. You've got an eighth of a field working on crossing and finishing. Like, what can I do versus I can't do blah, 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 blah. It's going to challenge you to say, how creative can I be? I'm probably not looking to whip balls in from the wide areas, but can I still cross from the end line? You see that? It's very much a trend in the professional game. How can I get closer to the box? Why? It gives defenders less time to react, right? Maybe that's the spin on it to say, I can work with that with my kids, right? Based on the space that I have. Think about it in here. Some of us might be getting stumped, just like, damn, I don't have the half field. What am I going to do in this tight space? Well, number one, if you want to isolate some of the technical pieces, I would definitely encourage, if you don't already, get tennis balls, get futsal balls, get super bouncy balls, give them different sizes and weights, because now all of a sudden the same activity you've done time and time and time again gives a different feel for it when you're giving me a tennis ball, right? And then the next one is a futsal ball, and the next touch is a super bouncy ball. Now all of a sudden I have to get engaged mentally to get my technique right versus get lazy and be like, done this before, I know what we're doing. So when we go back to the warm-up idea, can that be a spin that you put on it? Something that is a go-to for you, no problem. How can you keep it fresh? I would argue, not argue, but I would challenge you, have that be one way you keep it fresh, is that piece of it. Be mindful, especially in small spaces, small-sided games. And yeah, it's 4v4s, 5v5s. I would more encourage you to play 2v4s, 3v4s, 4v5s, because that's the game in a nutshell. It's dealing with those overloads. What are you going to get initially? That pushback of, coach, they have more players than we do. Deal with it. You want players that are more resilient, put them in situations that they have to be more resilient versus just talk about it. You're down 2 players. Why? You got 2 red cards. Play. 2v4, go. Right? And then you're going to flip the script. Maybe you only do it for 3-minute games. Right? But things to bring out in tighter spaces that you're probably not going to look to when you have the bigger spaces that you have advantage of. Again, what can you do? What twist can you put on things when you're in tighter spaces that you normally wouldn't think of? I think those are important pieces. 1v1s. Most simple, basic activity. Me play the mat. One of Bree's players, because she always talked about have a purpose. And she said, defenders, play the ball across to the attacker and then close him down. She said, coach, I have a question. She said, what? She said, why would I pass the ball to the opposing team in a game? She never did it again. She would always have attacker, maybe Mark and I are on a team. Attacking team always starts with it. You play into your teammate, and now I'll play with a defender. But think about it from a purpose standpoint, there is none. It's just laziness because we don't want a coach to put a real spin on it. What else doesn't change? 1v1s never go away, but where defenders and attackers start from is. Sometimes when you're playing 2v2s, 1v1s, can you play with the attackers back to the direction they're going? So now they have to do what? They have to solve the problem of how do I turn this player? And now are you going to start with the defender tight on him, or are they closing him from 10 yards? Because I have a little bit of space to give me that space and time to turn. You've given them a different problem to solve. But I think it's so easy. Smaller sided, play it across, play it, and you're always here, but the game comes from sides, right? Can the game sometimes come from Danny's closing me at an angle, and I need to get there, right? Or Danny's closing at an angle, and I need to get there. How quickly can I accelerate? Those are little tweaks that you can put on the exact same activity that you already do, but you do it in 1v1 to 4v4, or better yet, 2v3s, 3v4s. Again, think about, we want these resilient players, create that environment to make them resilient. I think those are often pieces that get overlooked, and then we forget about them, and now we've let a full season go to the wayside. Last thing I will pose to you as a staff, and this just comes from me directly, a big, bold idea that I would challenge you to do. Can you get everything you do in here to go to goal? I think I would assume all of us own pugs, and if you don't, you have these goals at your disposal, right? Can you have every single passing activity, technical activity, small-sided games the easiest, of course, everything goes to goal. Why? Because kids want to score goals. They like scoring goals, but now you're giving them that technique, and now you put little stipulations. Hey, everything has to end with a goal, but you have to chip the ball into the back of the net, and it doesn't count unless it hits the back of the net in the air, right? Maybe at 8 years old, they're never doing that. It's just instep, right? It's inside of the foot. But those I think are some small tweaks to get them thinking mentally again versus, okay, I got it, lazily dribble to the end of the line. How about it ends with, I get it, I turn, I have a shot. You've just put another demand on them. So something to think about as a coach, how can you put little tweaks in tight spaces and utilize what you do have versus complain and worry too much about what you don't have anymore and feel so limited? Any questions with that information from a numbers standpoint, from a space standpoint? Wanted to hit on those two specifically. Numbers standpoint, you don't deal with those ideals all the time. You've got 6 kids missing, especially in the wintertime. Any questions pop up? A lot of nothing. I'm going to share.
I think one thing to
Yeah.
be aware of that we do as coaches, especially in here, is sometimes you combine sessions.
Uh-huh.
Maybe in advance you find out that half your team's missing and you decide to go for the full facility, and you combine 2 teams.
Mhm.
Whether it be Mark and Mark's 2012 goals.
Yep.
If you do that, great. But again, stick with your topic, stick with your theme. Now you've got 2 coaches for a whole session. That's huge. They stay on the same wavelength, but now you can start to pull out players and talk to them individually while maybe the other coach is doing more of a team.
Good point.
Got something to kind of add into this. It's almost the opposite side of things is when you have your full team and you're in a tiny area, you're thinking, oh man, how can I get kids playing, kids moving? Don't be afraid to train ugly. And what I mean by that is don't be afraid to have a bunch of players in a smaller area, okay? Because it's going to make them have to make decisions quicker. It's going to have to make them be aware of their surroundings, so they're scanning. It's going to have to make them start communicating, and their technical is going to have to get better for them to find success. Now, is it going to be ugly? Yeah, it's going to be ugly, okay? But that's okay, because that's why you guys train. That's how you get better. You don't get perfect overnight. Something that I think about quite a bit is training communication, which you guys can do on this, but this activity reflects, Nick, I say 1, you say 2, I say 3. You've done that before, right?
Yeah.
1,
2.
3. And we just keep going back and forth. You'll notice that your kids are not good at that at the beginning, okay? Same thing with possession. You guys go throw a ball out, you have 2 teams that are playing possession. They might connect 2 passes in a row. Train ugly, because that's how they begin to get better and better and better. Yeah?
Yep, good points. I'm going to share that video. So if you're like, crap, what was it again, and how is it laid out? Because he also prefaces that video with another activity. So there's 3 gimmies for you. Icebergs 1, 2 out of the video, and that's if you only have 2 classroom sessions, your work's done. It's just a matter of you facilitating it. So if you guys have any other questions, you know how to reach me. That's all I have for tonight. You guys have anything to add? You good?